Hi guys, in this second lesson on triad pairs I'm gonna show you some more exercises so you can make some more interesting melodies with triad pairs, and I'm gonna show you some of the triad pairs that I use a lot. In the first lesson I talked about what a triad pair is and how you can sort of practice it and get started working with it. Now I'm just going to give you some more exercises on how you can make some more interesting melodies with some of the patterns that you can make with triads. And I'm also going to look a little bit into how you can start making lines if you don't want to make pattern-based lines and just want to connect them a little bit more freely. Besides that, I also want to show you some of the places where you maybe can benefit from not using the hack that I talked about in the first lesson, and why you might sometimes want to choose triads with a void note in them to really sort of nail the sound of a certain scale by using the triad pair. So I'm going to do that in the examples. I'm just going to give you some 2-5-1 examples where some of them will demonstrate how I use triad pairs to get specific sounds out of a chord. But let's just first start looking at some of the exercises. The first exercise sounds like this. Of course you can carry on and on, but just sort of to keep it easy to notate. The basic idea is of course that you're playing the triads in this sort of pattern where you take the middle note first, then the low note, and then the high note. And you can do that for all inversions, so that's... And it sounds a little bit less like you're running up and down triads all the time. And of course you can make more exercises like this by just arpeggiating in different ways and using different patterns. A thing that you can also do is to have different directions in the triads. So a simple version of that would be to take, since we're in the key of F, to take an F major and a G minor triad and then do this. So I have an ascending F and a descending G minor all the time, and then inversions. And of course you can start combining that with the first exercise and make more patterns, and you can make really cool patterns like this, and it sounds a little bit less like patterns. I'm not a huge fan of all the pattern-based triad ideas. Of course some of them are really useful and easy to play, so that's why you will use some of them, and maybe you'll use a small bit of it, but not like a huge chunk like what I just played. It can be good to check out. It's also anyway a good technique exercise, and it's giving you a lot of freedom in playing with the triads, which you need if you want to make lines that are not based on patterns. One other pattern that I should mention, which is also often really easy to play and really useful, is to use the two notes of the arpeggio to encircle a note in the next triad. So if I take B flat and an A minor triad, since we're in the key of F I can take those two, and then do that. If I play a B flat major triad, then the D and the F are sort of encircling the E, and then from the E I can play an A minor triad, and then of course the A and the C are encircling the B flat, and then that way I can loop it and get. And you get a lot of sort of lines that are easy to sort of move around in octaves, and they are usually kind of easy to play if you do this. So that can be a useful thing to also just check out a bit if you have to check out some pattern stuff. Let's try and work a little bit on what happens if you start to play stuff that's not pattern based. So if you're working on lines that are not based on patterns, but you're trying to just combine the two triads and make a sound out of that, one way you can practice this is to just start improvising, because this is of course you need to practice improvising because that's how you want to use them. And if you just improvise and say, well, okay, I'm gonna make some sort of solo or a small melody just using two triads, and then once I played one triad I'm gonna play the next one, and I'm trying to connect them so that it makes sense melodically, and also just checking out that I can find them and all that stuff. Of course, this is easier, and it also kind of demands that you really know your triads, and that you probably did do some of the pattern stuff just to get used to finding them and having an overview. But just to demonstrate, I'm gonna try and play a short line with a B flat and an A minor triad, and then I'm gonna try and write that out as an example. Maybe I'm not gonna write out the whole thing if I start playing too long, but then you get the idea. So that would be something like this. So that's one way you can get started with this. You can tell that I'm also playing patterns. I'm not really just running up and down the triads. I'm really trying to come up with new melodies and just exploring a lot. And I think that makes it easier to make better melodies once you start using this in the context of a song or a progression. Let's start looking at some of the examples of 2-5-1 lines that I made. All the lines are, since this whole lesson is in the key of F major, then all the lines are 2-5-1 progressions in the key of F, and I'm mostly going to be concerned with using the triad pairs on the altered dominants and the different kinds of altered dominants that I'm using. So the first example sounds like this. So what am I doing here? The dominant I'm using is coming out of the F harmonic minor scale, so that's a Mixolydian flat 9, flat 13. If you want to call it sort of a modal name. And the triad pair I'm using on this is a C and a D flat triad. So C major and D flat major. So you have these two major triads next to each other, which I find is a good way to sort of get really sort of the harmonic minor sound out. So you can make some nice melodies with that. Mixing those two up a bit, and this is a good example of a pair of triads where you're using the avoid note, because the avoid note is sort of giving you this sort of Phrygian change within the triads that makes it possible to make these melodies. So that's one place where I really just ignore my triad hack from the first lesson and try to include the avoid note for that very reason. Let's look at the second example. So in this example, well, the G minor part is this G minor pentatonic, and then I'm using a C7 altered, which is really like an altered dominant in this case. And what I'm doing here is that I'm using sort of the two most common triads that you would pair together for something like this, which is the two major triads that you find in C altered or D flat melodic minor, and that's the G flat and the A flat triad. So it's a A flat major triad in the first inversion, and then a root position G flat triad, and then I'm just running down the scale to resolve to the third of F. The third example sounds like this. So here I'm using, actually I'm using triad pairs on everything. So on the G minor, I'm using the G minor and the F major triad. You could of course look at this as being a G minor 11 arpeggio. And on the C7 altered, I'm using another triad pair out of the C7 altered scale. That's the G flat and the C augmented. Or in fact, in that scale that's an E augmented, but here it's an inversion. And so I'm just chaining those together like I did in example 3 by using this idea that between two notes of one triad you'll find a note from the other triad, and then you can play an inversion of that from there. And then on the F major 7 I'm playing F major 7 sharp 11, and I'm using two triads for that, and that's an A minor triad, which is basically the chord, and a G major triad. and I'm playing those like A minor, G major, and then a bit of the A minor triad too. So that was a few exercises on how you can make some more interesting patterns with the triads, and also just showing some of the patterns that I use a lot, and also how I work on making sort of not pattern-based lines with the triads, which is I think what I prefer the most. I'm not a huge fan of all this pattern-based melodic material. And I hope you can also use like some of the different combinations of triads that I used. I think it's something you need to explore by yourself and figure out what you like. And it can also be that you can always return to it and dig into it and see what you can make out of it. There are so many possibilities with this material that you can sort of mess around with it forever, because the possibilities are really, really, well, they're not endless, but almost. In any case, I hope that you can use the stuff that I went over here. If you want to download a PDF of the examples, then you can go to my website. In the article that is accompanying this lesson, you can download a PDF of the examples. When you're on my website, you can also subscribe to my newsletter if you want to stay up to date with what's going on. I send out sort of digests of the lessons that I published. I'm probably doing that monthly. I'm still sort of looking for the format for that really, but I am at least sending out lists once in a while, what I've been publishing. On my website you can also check out my web store if you want to see some of the lessons that I have for sale there. There are not so many yet, but I'm working on more, and it's more like taking some of the concepts that I'm covering here and applying them to songs and stuff like playing standard with drop 2 voicings, and really see how I use stuff, how I solo on a blues and F and some of those things. So check that out. If you like this video, then please like it here on YouTube, and if you have any questions, then you can of course leave a comment on the video. That goes if you have any ideas for topics or things that I should go further with in this lesson that you think that I could explain more about or make another lesson on, then let me know. Comments are always welcome. I try to answer most of them, so it's nice to hear from you guys, and it's also nice to hear what you guys want to hear lessons about, so that's interesting for me. If you haven't seen any of my lessons before, you can of course subscribe to my channel. That's also a way to stay up to date with lessons. And another way to get comments or feedback to me is also to connect with me via social media. So you can go like my Facebook page, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Actually on Instagram I publish sort of small licks, and then also usually the tabs for the licks. So if you're interested in those, then that's a good place to follow me. So that's it for this week. I'm a little bit curious if I'm gonna miss next week because I'm gonna go on tour in Spain, and I'm not sure if I have time to shoot a lesson for that week, but I'll do my best. But in any case, thank you for watching, and until next time.